All right, Billy, it's in, it's official, it's real. The suspicions are true. The Detroit Lions are kicking off the 2023 season by traveling to Arrowhead Stadium and taking on the Super Bowl champs, Kansas City Chiefs, in week 1 on Thursday Night Football to kick off the NFL season.
Well, then, you know what that means? It is time to get your Kool-Aid ready, Lions fans. Take a big old sip. Sprinkle in a little reasoning before you do this. Sprinkle in a little dash of reasoning. Okay? There you go. Take a big old sip of it.
Cheers.
Oh, yeah, cheers.
Clink. Oh, I wasn't going to do that. All right.
It's in my veins, man. It's
First game is in September. I can sip on it.
No, you got to get that going now. You got to get the heavy dosage now.
Get it in the veins. All right. Well, it's officially true. It was rumored. It was kind of like speculated, like this would be cool. This would be crazy. But it's real. And it's not just week 1. It is Thursday Night Football. First game before any other games kick off. The entire world will be watching the hyped up Detroit Lions take on the Kansas City Chiefs. What do you think?
Yeah, you got one of the most hyped teams coming into the season going against the NFL's current dynasty. You have the greatest player in the NFL in Patrick Mahomes. You have probably one of the best weapons in Travis Kelce. So it's a really exciting time because we are leaving the season as the last game against the Packers where we had the nation watching. And I believe we had most of the nation rooting for us. So I think we're starting the season again with a lot of people rooting for us.
Yeah, we didn't have the chance to make the playoffs and kind of piss anyone off other than the Packers, but that's fine. They don't count. But, everyone was kind of like, you see the Lions take down the Packers when they, quote, had nothing to play for and impress the entire world. And I think you're going to go into that game. I think you're going to go into week 1 with a ton of Lions fans that might not normally be Lions fans.
Oh, absolutely. And, just this entire offseason, we've gotten a new taste of just the national spotlight on Detroit. People ranking them as like the number 6 team in the entire league, and the Chiefs being number 1. So the Chiefs can't come in underestimating our Detroit Lions. I think that would be a huge mistake.
I think there's no chance there. I mean, this is almost to a fault. Like, you could almost say this is what would kill the Lions, is the whole world suddenly being on Team Lions before we've done it yet.
Yeah,
that's the scary part.
And that's something I really want to try to hammer home here is like this is our ideal first game. Winning, yeah, you just beat the Super Bowl champs. Like, that would be the absolute best start that any team could ask for going into such a hyped season. And if we lose, it's still not that bad. I don't want to like just be like, oh my God, 0-1 start. We did this last year, yada, 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 because this is going to show us where we need to improve. You're facing the best. You're facing one of the top defenses. You're facing probably the most lethal offense in the entire league. And you have a young team, and we made a ton of additions that if we lose this game, I'm not down on them. I don't want to see them give up. I want to see us keep that grit, that Dan Campbell mentality through the entire game. And I think we're going to keep it competitive. But if we lose, it's not the end of the world at all. It gives us what we need to improve on moving forward. And for all we know, these Chiefs are going to be coming off a Super Bowl hangover. It's a myth, maybe, but they just won. And who knows, that week 1, they come in and, like I said, what they shouldn't do is underestimate the Lions. And we have a full season of prep and hype. It's not you just beat the Bears week 12 and, oh man, now we got our big test of the season, week 13 against the Chiefs. No, you have all of this time. You have 4 months. I believe the game is on September 7th. Yeah, you have 4 months for your team through all of your practices, all of the meetings to study this team. They have the most tape. They played the most games last year. So, yeah, just an entire time for all the young guys on this team to get hyped up, to mesh all like that. It's going to be great for that.
I like what you said about even with the loss. It feels like when you're doing it that early, if you lose, especially if it's a close game, especially if you play the Chiefs well and you use that game to highlight a few issues, because it's already been shown that the Lions have one of the easier strengths of schedules just based on the previous year's winning percentage. So to kick off the year with what is going to be what is supposed to be your toughest game right off the bat, if you lose that game, you immediately get to know what you need to improve on to beat the best in the league, to actually take it to the next level. Should you make it to a playoff game? Should you get in those late game matchups where you need to come up big? You have that week 1 footage where your team should be the healthiest and just be able to completely focus on exactly where you messed up and know where you need to improve. I'll take that over putting a beat down like on the Bears week 1 or something. You know, it's a little scary because there's a chance you get stomped.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chance you get stomped in a game like that, in that kind of spotlight. Something about that Lions logo just does make you feel, no matter how big of a fan you are, you've been there before, and you know there's that chance it's going to be an embarrassing week. And it's terrifying to think of that possibility. I think that's your only terrible scenario. I think winning is the biggest confidence booster Dan Campbell in this roster could possibly get to start off a season. A close game loss, even losing by like 10, you know, not saying, you know, but getting, you know, if you get, I think your worst case scenario, I'm not even talking a blowout like 50-30. I'm talking you give up 21 to 30 points and you can't put up more than a touchdown. Maybe you only get a couple field goals. If your offense that is supposed to look great, you're supposedly just drafted a weapon. If you can't, if something completely doesn't show up, I think that's your only bad scenario. But I think you're totally right. You know, at first it sounds scary. This really could be exactly what the Lions need week 1.
Yeah.
But,
and you did note that it's going to be the healthiest this roster is going to get. And
hopefully,
barring no, you know,
preseason,
preseason injuries.
Yeah, all that. Oh, God,
those
I don't
things
want.
happen. But it is likely going to be the healthiest roster that we'll see. And not to add to the fear of the week 1 nerves or anything like that, but it is going to be difficult because the Lions made some very big additions on the defensive side of the ball as well as the offensive, but we'll look at the defensive first. In Cam Sutton, Gardner Johnson, and Emmanuel Mosley, we essentially replaced our top 3 cornerbacks just with that. I don't know if a week 1 you can just throw those 3 together and they're going to mesh and they're going to know each other well enough on, you know, sharing those responsibilities on each receiver through the zones, through the man, the handoffs, everything like that. It's scary.
Is there anything to the idea of that in some ways potentially working in their favor? Of when you have so many new starter additions, you don't have any Lions tape of that team. You know what I mean? You don't have any Lions tape of Sutton and CJ and Mosley. You don't have any tape of the Montgomery, Gibbs, St. Brown, Laporta offense. That tape doesn't exist. You could only take tape of their individual performances on previous teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it is a bit of a blessing and a curse for sure. And I like the idea. I've been watching a little bit of Gardner Johnson over on Twitch, and he definitely has kind of like that dog mentality people always talk about, right? And there's something, I feel it, that when he matches up against those Chiefs again, he's going to see it as a revenge game. And he's going to be, he's going to be out there going super hard for us.
There's nobody on that roster that wants that week 1 more than him.
Yep.
Like that guy 100% got that news and is pumped about it.
But then you also have Mosley and Sutton, who they're not old, they're not like veterans, but you know, they're seasoned in this league. They are experienced. They have worked with new people multiple times throughout their career. They know how to mesh with them. I don't think that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes would bring in people that he doesn't think could be, you know, meshes personality and style wise on this team right now. So full trust in that they're all going to work together and mesh well. But it is still a week 1 fear of, you know, maybe they need a little more time. Maybe the week 1 performance versus the week 10 performance is a whole new team that we did see on this Lions roster last year. We were 1-6 and finished 8-2. The changes through a season will happen, and our biggest changes came through our secondary. So we're hoping that with these additions, we've really meshed that up and they're going to be better right off the bat, but we don't know. But some of the other additions that the Lions made: Marvin Jones, wide receiver. We signed David Montgomery and Graham Glasgow, our offensive guard, as well as losing our defensive tackle Michael Brockers, safety Deshaun Elliott, running back Jamal Williams, who broke Barry Sanders' record with 14 one-yard touchdowns. Cornerback Mike Hughes, wide receiver DJ Chark, and this one hurts the most.
This is probably, if you had to make a before the game has even happened, reason why it sucks to play the Chiefs week 1 is you are putting the Chiefs in a slot where we're not going to have Jameson Williams, and it does suck. It would be really, really nice to go in against our toughest game of the year with the offensive weapon that is supposed to be that blow the top off the defense kind of guy, and that's what you want when you're playing your toughest opponent. And that's gonna suck. That's probably your biggest hit so far.
Yeah, that one really hurts. I still think losing DJ Chark is gonna hurt quite a bit, but almost every other thing that we've lost, you could argue we have upgraded on.
Yep.
Through this offseason. So this team got better.
Hey, you like what you're hearing so far? We do too. You should do it again sometime. Go ahead and subscribe so you can catch the next one. Do it right now.
And when you look at the Chiefs, it seems like a little more like lateral movement. They added Juwan Taylor, Charles Omenihu, Drew Tranquil, Mike Edwards, but they also lost 2 offensive tackles in Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley, which I know that you could argue those are just kind of lateral movements in moving those players around. They lost Juju, who I know the NFL is not high on. There are a lot of people who do not respect him as a player with like his skills and what he can do on the field, and more that dislike him for his off the field. But the fact is he could perform, and he was someone that took attention for that offense. And they also lost McCole Hardman and Ronald Jones. That's a wide receiver and a running back. So some of their offensive pieces are missing, and I'm not going to hold that against the Chiefs at all. I'm not holding that against Andy Reid in the scheming. You still have Travis Kelce. You still have the best quarterback in the NFL in Patrick Mahomes. He's so dynamic. He's so dangerous in every way that I don't think this team got like significantly worse. It's not like you can look at them and say like, oh man, you lost 6 starters. Oh, that's terrible. Or like the other year when Tampa Bay, I think, was the first one to bring back the full starting roster after a Super Bowl. They didn't do that, but they made a lot of good lateral movements here that you could arguably just say like, yeah, that's totally fine having Juwan Taylor instead of Orlando Brown.
Well, the good news is that's the conversation you have to have, is that the Chiefs didn't lose much. They didn't get much worse. Whereas when you look at the Lions side, you could heavily look, they got better.
Yes.
And week 1, I don't have the score in front of me. Week 1 last year, they immediately had a very similar test of going against the future Super Bowl runner-up Philadelphia Eagles, and they barely lost that game. Since that day, this team has gotten significantly better. So at least at minimum, we're not being crazy here and saying, oh, the Lions are a better team on paper than the Chiefs, but you can objectively say that one team got much better since last season, and one team either stayed roughly the same or slightly dropped. I think it's tough to look at what the Chiefs have done and be able to confidently say that they've gotten better.
Yeah, I wouldn't say better by any means, but you're still the best. You still have
exactly. They even though you move a little bit down, you were still the best at that point.
Yeah, and I know that in their draft they added a defensive end in Felix Anudike Uzama, and of course they did. They drafted another wide receiver. They lose Schuster and Hardman, and they grab another one out of the draft. So again, you're just getting that arsenal all filled up. They lose people every offseason, and they continue to stay good. It's the NFL. You can't pay everybody every time. I was looking up, and I see a lot of the 2019 draft class leaving. They've been really good through that entire time. And they lost people from the 18 draft class, 17 draft class through that entire time, and they stay relevant because they have the right pieces in the right places to continue to perform. In all the respect to Andy Reid in the scheming.
But the Lions did some work in the draft too, which, you know, have had mixed reactions since it happened. But for me, well, for both of us, we definitely we talked about it. You know, you see Brad Holmes do something that surprises you, and when someone has a track record so far like Brad Holmes, instead of just questioning it and telling you, you know, and just saying, "Oh, that's dumb," everything he's done prior has been for a reason. So you look into it, and we kind of we ended up being completely on board and getting excited. And now this is the part where you could tell me if you agree or not. This is as soon as I see we're playing the Chiefs week 1, I'm even happier we took a guy like Gibbs first, knowing that we're not going to have a JMO. You know, to have that extra offensive weapon, to have the tight end in Laporta, to have Jack Campbell and Brian Branch, all guys that you can expect are going to contribute in that game. Suddenly, this draft is looking 10 times better than it already did just since finding out we're playing the Chiefs week 1.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of risk and reward in going in this game. We talked about just general, you know, team confidence of going 0-1. But if you're Jack Campbell and it's your first game in the NFL and you're matching up against Travis Kelce, that's intimidating. But you have this entire offseason is Dan Campbell and the entire training staff to look at the tape, run the drills, get Jack Campbell ready, and have him understand that, you know what? Your first week in the league, if Travis Kelce goes off for 125 yards and a touchdown, 2 touchdowns or whatever, that's not going to be your entire career. Okay. I don't want them to get their confidence too hurt in it. I'm hoping that you can go in with the right mentality, but let's say Jack Campbell shows up. Let's say plays a little bit of a lockdown on some Travis Kelce, and
isn't that some of the beauty of playing the Chiefs with these names though, is you're going to have these moments where okay, Jack, okay, Bryant, like you're going to have a chance to see these guys go against the best of the best, a Super Bowl, not just Super Bowl favorite, but a Super Bowl winning caliber team. It's exciting. It is really, really exciting to see them get that chance.
Yeah, and I really like that the pressure is off, that it's week 1. It's not, week 5, and let's say we had a bit of a slow start like we did last year. The defensive core isn't quite meshing together. You need a little more time for them to get used to playing with one another. And for whatever reason, we're 3-2, and you've got division rivals, the Vikings, up at 4-1 after 5 weeks, right? And then you face the Chiefs, and you're like, oh man, we're going to be 500 after 6 weeks. That's going to give us 11 more games to really kind of win more than we lose, to
the pressure's
be able
off
to win the division. Yeah, having it week 1 versus that week 6, week 7 with a possible slow start, it takes off a lot of that pressure off those guys, and it's go out there, have your fun and show that you can do this. Show that you have those little blips of excellence in you.
So then, all things considered, everything, throw it in a blender, let it mix for 4 quarters. What comes out at the end? What are you thinking? What is your, actually, let's do 2. Let's do 2. What's your Lions Kool-Aid prediction, and what's your trying to be completely objective, realistic expectation?
Lions
win first.
If I'm drenching myself in the Kool-Aid, if I'm just in a pool of it right now, down in the Bahamas, whatever, I'm gonna say the Lions would take a 38-35 win.
Ooh, okay.
It would be a high scoring one, the way we started off last year. And I think we win it by 3. I think we get a final drive and we kick a field goal to win in Arrowhead. That would be
the major difference I'm going to have in my Lions, in my Kool-Aid prediction, I'm going to say we score roughly 34 points. I'm going to say we hold the Chiefs to 21.
Ooh.
And I'm thinking, I'm calling big CJ plays with a big celebration. I'm talking sacks. Maybe we get maybe Houston forces a fumble. I'm talking 1 to 2, maybe more defensive playmaker moments that you can point to later in the season and be like, that's when it started.
Yeah, that would be really sick. Do you want to
Now,
give
on the
your
other hand,
reasonable? There you go.
on the other hand, if I'm being completely reasonable, I won't be, I won't echo all the things that we said, and I'll just say I could see the game starting off really strong offensively, and I could see us hitting a wall by halftime offensively. That's the part that scares me. I don't think our defense is going to get lit up. I think it's just realistically, I don't think we're going to get those turnovers. That's the part that kind of sucks. It feels like it's going to be a lot of bending, trying to bend, not break, and Mahomes is going to keep stealing third downs. And I think we're probably going to lose. Nothing crazy. I really don't believe we're going to get blown out. I could see it being like a 28-21 kind of game.
Okay. I would agree with you on the reasonable take on so many of those points, like the Mahomes stealing third downs. I don't know if we're going to be able to make them punt. And that's what scares me is that we might do the bend, don't break, and we might bend. And we might just bend a lot and break a couple times. I don't anticipate the stops.
Right, and that's why I'm not like not even just a no blowout high scoring. I think they keep it in the 20s. I think both sides play good defensive. I think it's going to be where our defense keeps getting pushed back and the chemistry isn't quite there yet. That Mahomes keeps stealing those third downs, and it's going to be painful. It's going to be one of those like, oh my God, we just needed to stop him right there. We have felt that very recently, where it's like we were that close. Because it's like what you said earlier, that defensive chemistry just isn't going to be there yet. But
yeah, so my reasonable outcome, I'm going to put it at 33-24. That's taking in, 3 touchdowns and 4 field goals. That's what I'm talking about with we're going to keep bending. We're getting that third down. And then they'll be on their side of the field. And, maybe we get that one. Maybe that 1 out of 3, maybe 1 out of 4 per drive, third down stop, and you hold them to a field goal. And then those other times they're going to break through. They're going to score their touchdowns. And I think the Lions offense will still come out to play and put up 24 points.
Even in my reasonable one, though, Gibbs breaks for just a monster touchdown.
Oh, hopefully.
Like 60 plus yards.
That'd be nice.
I guess we'll see. Few months away. Let's do it.
4 months.